Over the last couple of years, we've had accelerated transformation in every industry, including the accounting profession. And what I'm noticing is that most businesses were built up because they had a geographical advantage. People like to buy from an accountant who was geographically close to them. Most people who were based in Lichfield had a Lichfield accountant. Most people who were based in Wimbledon had a Wimbledon accountant. And really, that gave every accountant room to formulate a niche by default. And that was, that was a very harmonious way to organize the accounting profession for decades, if not centuries. What has happened over the last couple of years, but really it's accelerated trends that started 20 years ago, is that people are now shopping based on ideology versus geography. So they're looking for someone who shares their values. They're looking for someone who perhaps has an industry-specific niche. They're looking for someone who they've heard maybe they've heard them on YouTube, or they've heard them on a podcast, or they've seen something they've written, and that they've connected with that content. And then as a result of connecting with that content, they say, yep, that's the accountant. I don't really care where they are. I don't mind if they're in Scotland. I don't mind if they're in Wales. I don't mind if they're in London. I just care that they are the person that I should be connecting with based on shared ideology. So that's a big fundamental shift for most businesses. And that means that we all have to reposition ourselves around a niche that is based on some sort of an ideology. That's not the only change that's happening in the accounting profession, as I'm sure you're absolutely aware. I think the accounting profession is attacked on all sides at the moment. There are massive software companies that are trying to convince small business owners that they don't need an accountant. They're saying that you can do your own accounts, you can enter your own details, you can have software that does analysis for you. I personally think that's absolutely rubbish. I think it's a sacred relationship between the fast growth entrepreneur and their professional advisors. I think that it's really important that anyone who takes their business seriously has a great relationship with their accountant. It's the accountant who can spot the harsh realities within the numbers. It's the accountant who can advise how to execute a plan. It's the accountant who can forecast what might happen in the future, come up with scenarios, and really help guide and develop the entrepreneur towards a successful outcome. I don't know of many people who have successfully built and sold a company without really great input from their accounting professionals. So I personally want to see that relationship thrive. I want to see that relationship restored, and I want to evangelize and encourage that relationship to be strengthened. I think that things like software are fabulous and they're an exceptional tool, but in the same way that a fabulous drill doesn't replace a builder, a great piece of software doesn't replace an accountant. But I still think that it's important that accountants really make the case for what they can do, and they make the case for the value add that they can offer to the entrepreneur or to the business leader. And I think that's really important. The accountant has to position themselves as that key person of influence in the eyes of the buyer. So more than just someone who works the software, someone who understands the business. So these are, key ideas that are changing the industry. And I've got a few ideas that I want to share with you on how to position yourself as a key person of influence, how to market yourself based on that geography, and how to market yourself, not on geography, but on ideology, and how to get a consistency of inquiries that are based upon the right values, so that you're attracting the right customers. You're not fighting for price. You're not fighting based upon a race to the bottom. You're presenting yourself as a valuable solution to the right people who can see that. So these are all the things that I want to get across in my workshops. So let me share with you what we're going to be covering. Workshop number 1 is called the Key Person of Influence Workshop. And this is about building a personal brand. So let me talk about why that's important. The average age of someone who successfully builds a business, whether it's an accounting business or any other business, is actually 42. Harvard Business Review said that the average age of a successful entrepreneur when they start their business is 42. And yet, if you look in the press, you would think it's 20-year-olds. You'd think it's very young people starting and growing successful companies. The truth is that the people over the age of 30 don't really get a lot of press for starting successful businesses. So when we look at what it is that builds a successful business, it's things like contacts and connections and insights. and an understanding of an industry. So those are the things, that's why the average age is 42. And mind you, for every 22-year-old, there's a 62-year-old who's building a successful business. So it's all of those connections and insights and ideas that make a business successful. However, here's the problem. Most people don't take a breather. They don't take a step or a pause to consolidate their experience into an asset. So what typically happens is you get someone who's a great accountant who's been, in the accounting profession for maybe 10, 15, 20 years. They've got lots of great experiences, lots of great stories. If they stopped and thought about it, they've got all sorts of amazing things they've done. They've probably helped someone exit their company for a life-changing amount of money. They've probably helped widen margins from non-existent to 15, 20%. They've probably given some life-changing advice that got someone out of stress and into a business that they love. They probably helped a business leader to make the business case for investment or business case for getting a transformational loan. So there's all these things that an accounting professional has within their background, but they're not talking about it. They're not sharing those stories. They just got their head down, doing more of the functional work of accounting, and they're not doing the storytelling work. And of course, it seems weird that an accountant should be a storyteller or have to be a storyteller. And as I said, in the days of geography, in the days where people made their decision based on the accountant down the road, you didn't have to be a storyteller. You didn't have to share any of those stories. People would just go and find you locally. But today, in order to position yourself as highly valuable, we have to do a little bit of a pause. We have to look back across that mountain of value that you're standing on and identify what are some of the great stories, what are some of the facts, what are some of the connections, who are some of the people you've helped along the way who are now in a higher place. Who are some of the people who you've helped them solve a problem? What was the problem? How did you solve the problem? How can we formulate that into a bit of a story? All of those stories can be consolidated into assets. Assets like videos, assets like podcasts or books or blogs, assets like formalized and practiced and rehearsed sales pitches. What a funny word to trip up on. Putting it into a great pitch, putting it into materials that can build profiles. So we want to look at that story, that last 15 years, and pull as much value out of it as possible, consolidate all of that into assets.